will there be a vegetarian option, or is there peanuts in any of the food that's going to be there for lunch? You know what? Screw you. If you have a peanut allergy, bring your own goddamn sandwich with you. Too bad. I don't care that Chick-fil-A fries their waffle fries in peanut oil. That's your friggin' problem. If you choose not to eat carnivorous the way I do, go to hell. I'm paying for the meal. It's going to be fried chicken. It's going to be Chick-fil-A, and there's going to be waffle fries, and that's it. I'm not getting a big bowl of lettuce. Whenever like an admin would come ask me and say, someone asked if there'd be vegetarian, and I know you wanted Chick-fil-A tenders, I would be like, tough shit. They should bring their own food. I have zero patience for any of that garbage. So that's me personally, but I don't give a shit if your kid has a peanut allergy. You should know that. I'm not preparing for just one kid out of 20.
Frankie and I are agreeable guys, and certainly on this podcast, we like to present ourselves as professional and polite and helpful. But behind the scenes, we're just a couple of middle-aged, grumpy, irritated dudes who are annoyed by just about everything people do around us. And this episode touches on 10 behaviors that are the equivalent of someone scratching their fingernails across a chalkboard to Frank and I. If you've ever been annoyed by the kind of people we're about to talk about, you're going to love this episode. There are just some a-holes that are so miserable in the workplace that they need to be called out, and this is our episode of doing it. If you haven't shared our show with a friend, you also irritate us. If you haven't given us a 5-star review, you irritate us. If you are not subscribed on one of the many places where we post this stuff, you irritate us. So that's 3 bonus ones for everyone. And without further ado, let's dive into 10 things that irritate your manager.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Mathews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
You can't say God here.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, you son of a bitch!
It's Friday.
We're a little out of rhythm this week.
We are recording on a Friday. How did this happen? What do we have going on? Why couldn't we do it on Wednesday this week?
Oh, we're raising $4 million, Ian.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. That's right. Had to put together a little investor deck on Wednesday. Our normal podcast time had to take a back seat to something that actually generates income.
Keeps everyone happy. Everyone
our pet project got bumped so we could make some cashola.
Exactly. So we could overpay the IRS.
Yes, but in the meantime, multiple people annoyed us this week.
So I'm really excited about this episode because this is like the true essence of Ian and me. Like if right now we don't really talk on the phone as much as we used to because we do the podcast and kind of fills up 3 hours of our week. But like in the old days when we would just get on the phone, we would just leave funny voicemails or different things. So Ian and I were on the phone on Wednesday working on a pretty important email deck, and an email started circulating about t-shirt size in the company. In my company, and we're up to like 40 employees now. So someone replied, CCing everyone in the company about, hey, please leave me off of CC lists and send it to everybody. So Ian and I were talking in real time on this, and I just got like, we were giggling. We weren't really mad, but this would start us down the line of like what pisses us off or what gets us annoyed.
Who are the people that do these things, that reply all the 30 people saying I'm more important than the other 29? Take me off this email list.
That's right. And I replied with something along the lines of, hey, please take me off of your reply all to a reply all asking to be removed. And while Ian and I were on this, I BCC'd him, which is Ian's big move. He loves to reply to BCCs. And I was like, Ian, you have to sign it, Frank's business coach. So Ian wrote this. As funny as this is, please also remove me from the BCC line, Frank. Many thanks. Signed, Frank's business coach.
Frank, no, this is not something that annoys me, but Frank absolutely loves to BCC me on dumbasses that he's replying to. Like, but part of it is because Frank likes to really spend a lot of time coming up with a witty retort to an asshole that's irritating him, but he loves to BCC me on stuff. And I love getting them because, quite frankly, I get almost no nonsense in emails because I just don't respond to them anymore. I hardly get any emails anymore. And if you want to get a hold of me, you just call me. I'm not big on email, so I don't get copied on much. So I like seeing the organizational stupidity still. And Frank is my one source that still gives it to me.
The best part about these emails is my email landed first and I just heard an eruption of laughter. And about 75 seconds later, they saw Ian's and everybody. So like we broke our meeting up and I brought everybody in here. We had a good laugh, but this got us centered. I think this is going to be one of our best podcasts, Ian, because we are both unified around the topic.
Well, and I think so, for our dozens of loyal listeners, Frank and I try to come across as, above reproach and very mature. But the truth is, most of the time, we're just a couple of crotchety old guys with money that complain about everyone else. So this is going to be an episode that really speaks to the true character of the two co-hosts of this show, because the truth is, most people in business irritate the hell out of us and annoy us.
Most people in life, if we're being honest, like almost everyone except for us. Like I annoy Ian annoys me. The only person who never annoys me is me.
That's absolutely true. My kids annoy me. My wife annoys me. I am annoyed by Frank most of the time I talk to him. I'm about the only person I think is pretty cool to hang out with most of the time.
Right. So what I think we're going to have to do with this episode is get some cheap Chardonnay and get our wives together and listen to this so they could just make fun of us.
So without further ado, these are 10 people who annoy us most at work. And I feel like we could probably do this as a 10-part series. We could go to 100 and not ever run out of steam. Maybe we just once a month, this is one of our episodes going into it. But let's start. So Frank's example is absolutely hilarious, but who is the guy that when you say remove me from the email distribution, what you are saying is, I have too many emails. This is not important to me. I'm more important than the other people on the distribution list, and I need a few less emails my way. And I guess is the assumption that the other 30 people on the email list want to get that email about t-shirt sizes. I never understand the mentality of the person who is brash enough to give everyone else one more email while saying, I want to get less emails. So you're creating a problem for everyone else while trying to be selfish enough to take yourself off of a problem. Can't you just delete the emails and move on? Like, is it really destroying your productivity that week?
Right, just be miserable with like the rest of us and just hit the delete button. Don't share with us, you short-sighted son of a bitch. Like just hit the X and move on.
Can't you just be miserable like the rest of us bastards on this stupid distribution list that don't want it? Can't you just be that guy like us? Just delete them all.
If you really want to talk about assholes, I'm the biggest asshole here. I've got like 7 people that look at my email. So most of these things don't even make it to me. But in the off chance that I see it, damn you.
I can honestly say, the other thing I don't understand is, why do you reply all to say, take me off the distribution list? Because the person who sent it in the first place is normally the person you just need to tell to go there. So why do you have to bother everyone else to let them know you're more important than them? I never understand that.
So we're going to get into passive aggressive in a minute, but what I do when I see those emails, like especially if it's someone on my leadership team who sends them out, I'll reply just to them and say, hey, awesome email. I'm really enjoying the back and forth. However, if you were to put everybody in the BCC line going forward, it would save some hassle. Like, just handle it right up front. Like, we're doing leadership essentials today, and what we're going to talk about is feedback. That's feedback. That's a way to just combat the problem, deal with the problem, get it over with, and hopefully move on. So you don't have to deal with this dipshit, like the whole process with like, leave me off.
So speaking of BCC, I've been out of the corporate world for 3.5 years now, and I'm not in the lingo of getting BCC'd on shit anymore. So every once in a while, Frank will BCC me as an FYI, which apparently is big on his team, just letting people be on the inside. But I screw Frank every time he does it by replying all to everyone with some dumbass thing that I've said, and Frank being like, "Hey, BCC." All of my etiquette is completely gone from 20 years of corporations.
So one of my good friends when I lived in Charlottesville owned a meat farm. So he owned like all these like cows, right? So Ian and I went in on like a portion of a cow, and like the BCCing Ian is similar to this. I went through like, you get a cooler with all these cuts of meat and they're all vacuum sealed and it lays it all out. So I went into my kitchen counter and I laid all the steaks out, like everything. I broke them into categories, and there was like hundreds of cuts. This took forever. And I'm like an hour into this and I look up and I'm like, why am I doing this? There's absolutely no sense in doing this. Whatever I give to Ian and Jenny, they're going to bitch. They're absolutely going to bitch. Like, this is the most thankless exercise on earth.
Well, part of it is, and the reason why Frank knew we were going to bitch is he sold us hard on this. He was like,
I thought it was going to be great.
Cows are fed grass. They're like, this is different than your normal, stuff. Like, this guy, he only has a certain number of head and he really feeds them well. And this is good cuts of meat. So he sold us on buying a quarter of a cow with him. Like, hey, you want to go in on a quarter? It's kind of like a drug deal he did with Jenny and I. We were 3 sheets to the wind at a winery when he convinced us to do this. So we're like, yeah, we're in. Let's buy some meat. And so I think you knew we were going to complain because when you looked at the cuts, they all sucked. You had 100 crappy cuts of meat that looked worse than anything you could get at Giant in the bargain bin section. So Frank was trying to meticulously give us like the bone-in ribeye and maybe a bone-in filet, but they were all tiny cuts of meat you might get at like an Applebee's, for a steak. And he was trying to find like maybe something they could serve at the Cap Grill, and there just wasn't anything.
So the equivalent of replying to the BCC line is going in on a quarter cut of steak with the Mathews. And then for months, his wife would just call or text me out of the blue, "Frankie, I love using this prime filet for fajitas."
Hey, it's fajita night again, Frank. We just cut up another one of your steaks. That's the only way you could get it down, was by marinating it in lots of salt and sauces.
I have no idea if anyone's going to enjoy this, but the back of my head's already hurting from laughing.
So number 2 on our list of
yes.
And Frank has an amazing story, but I'm just going to say the subtopic on this. I can't stand winning the morning guy. And Frank can't stand this guy either. So Frank, explain who winning the morning guy is.
So winning the morning guy is a couple of different things, right? There's a guy who came out with a book. It is like, I tried to read it. Like, so many people that I know in my life are like, "Have you read this book?" And I'm like, all right, I'll buy the book. I sat down and I read like 11 pages. I'm like, this is awful. This is written on like a 3rd grade level. This dude has such a huge ego. This is terrible. The name of the book is My Miracle Morning. And it's by a guy named
Hal Elrod. Is it Hal Elrod?
Hal Elrod wrote the book. And honestly, I owned it. I think I donated it and gave it to charity after I read the first 11 pages. I'm like, this is terrible. Now, Ian and I both,
that bastard that sold us that shitty meat. That's who you
right,
should.
Exactly. Now, Ian and I both have morning routines. Like, we're both up texting or emailing each other quite early. I have 2 kids under the age of 3. Like, it's the only time there's any peace in my life. So we get up early, but we don't have like memorialized events or like, put pictures of ourselves on Facebook at 5 o'clock in the morning with our routine. I think that's the part that really annoys the shit out of us, but we'll get into that in a second. So there's a guy in my market I wanted to go to lunch with for a while, and we were having a hard time catching up. So I text him one day, and it's early. It's before 6. And he replies back with this hysterical. He goes, "Hey, I'm up early today, but this isn't an anomaly. I don't want you to think I'm one of those winning the morning guys."
So this is another email that I got BCC'd on. Frank's response. Frank loved the guy from the minute he said it, because you actually don't want to be known as this guy, the guy that talks about his morning every day in the office, the guy that comes in and says, I was up at 4:30, I journaled, I did some meditating, I made sure to get a 6-mile run in, and they tell you all these things that they did in their morning. And this is also the person that loves to tell you how it's changing their life. Their miracle morning is changing their life, but they're also broke. So I like, why you're 40 and you're posting about your miracle morning on Facebook, and you still drive a 1999 Hyundai. Like, what? Stop talking about your miracle morning. It doesn't matter what your morning was. Did you produce anything? Did you sell anything today? Did you make any money? Or did you just have an amazing morning with 7 points that you went through?
Newsflash, asshole. Anyone who's successful has a good morning. Like, we figure out how to not start our day with dog shit. Even if your day starts off with videos from Facebook of Seinfeld or Sports Center, but it makes you in a good mood to go tack the rest of your day, that's a win. That's a good day. You get in a get in a workout, a hot shower, and maybe a good dump. Boom. Like, we've got ourselves all the hallmarks of a great day.
Right. Get yourself a cold brew, drink some water, make sure the plumbing still works. You're all right. Let's go. Whatever. Don't tell me about when you got up. I don't give a shit what time you woke up.
Two hysterical stories about this, both from high school. So he had this kid, I'll leave his name out. He walked up to Nickel and me, and he talked to us about how he did like 1,000 sit-ups and 1,000 push-ups every day before school. And Nickel just deadpans and looks at him and says, you may want to rethink your diet. The other one was,
great job, Herschel Walker. Maybe a few less hostess than lunch.
The other one was Nickel and me were in the car with his mother. His mother's like the nicest, sweetest lady. She never says a cross word about anybody. And I'll leave the lady's name out of it, but the lady that we knew, she was getting up every morning and going to this shitty gym that we used to have in Coral Springs called Ronnie's Gym. She's like, so-and-so is getting up every morning and working out at Ronnie's Gym. Honestly, I've never seen her fatter.
That's amazing.
Nickel and I are like in the back seat, just like bursting the laughter, like, what do we do with this?
But that person is also posting about how they're working out at Ronnie's Gym every morning. Like, every day they're posting about it. To me, if you have to post on social media, if you have to brag in an office about your morning, you don't have anything else going on.
Right.
Like, but successful people, yes, they get up early, they work out in the morning, they do things. That's because they have kids and they have a lot going on at work, and they have no other time in the day to do it. So that's when they try to fit it in. That's not like the peak of their day is their morning. That's not the peak. The peak is when they're producing shit later on in the day. So if you have to talk about your morning all the time and all the journaling you did and the meditation and the workout, you have to talk about all that. It's because you're not producing anything else during the day. Don't be this obnoxious ass that talks about your morning, because no one really cares about it. You could have the worst morning in the world. You know what Jeff Bezos does in the morning? He gets up around 8 and he putters for an hour. That's his word. I putter. I like to putter around the house. I kind of pick up the paper, look around, talk to the kids. Like, he starts his day at 9:30 or 10. He doesn't win the morning. He putters around, thinks about shit, and he gets to work and produces things the rest of the day.
One of the takeaways in my life that I've got as kind of a rule at this point is, if you're in mixed company, you know, you don't know all the players involved. The person who usually spends the most time talking is usually the least successful.
Yes.
And I find this winning the morning as being one of those things. It's like, okay, great. You've accomplished this one thing in your day. This is not too dissimilar from the please remove me from the BCC list. Like, I'm so important. Like, if you're really so important, this would just be one fundamental building block on the rest of a really good day. It's not the highlight.
To get Jenny's dad to tell you about his business and to really learn, Frank, to really learn, you've got to ask like 50 questions, and it will take you 10 conversations, because he will keep changing the subject back to you, because he doesn't want to ever sound like he's bragging. Like, everyone who meets Chief for the first time thinks he has like 2 people that work for him and he has a truck. That's all you can get out of him. Like, you don't know he has this massive operation that's highly profitable, that's been going for 50 years. You have no idea, because he never wants you to think he's bragging or trying to act better than you, or, you know, and Chief never wins the morning. He gets up and runs for like a mile on a treadmill and does 10 curls and goes in after his plumbing's working. That's it. That's it.
So we're going to transition from the winning the morning guy into the guy. And now we're saying guy. There are women who do this too, but Ian and I were going through the list of people who annoy us. It's mostly men. It's mostly men who annoy us.
It's 80-20. Men annoy us more than women at work by far.
Yeah.
So ladies, yes, you annoy us too. Just there's degrees, and most people, when we started naming names before this episode, they were dudes. So we are going to, just for the sake of this, and we are a very woke podcast. We're
no doubt.
We're a woke organization. We don't want you to cancel Let Me Speak to a Manager. We may cancel it ourselves one day, but don't cancel us. We're just going to use the term guy instead of gal for all of these. So don't take offense. Women, you annoy the hell out of us too.
No doubt. In addition, there's a friend of mine from high school who always says, I mean, guy. So like having guy in here is really important to us. All right. And we're basically the only ones listening anyway, so who cares? All right. So the guy who tells you how many emails he gets every day. Ian, why does this guy annoy you?
You are just an ass. I think it's important to get to the whys of why these people do these things. I think guy who tells you how many emails he gets a day, and it's always going to be 100 plus. No one ever says I get 15 emails a day, especially in a big company. It's always going to be 100, and then someone will outdo them and get like, I get 200 a day. And there's some assholes that will tell you they get 300 a day. I think the undertone of that is, I'm really important around here. This company couldn't work without me. I get so many emails because so many people need me and they have to update me. I think that's what that person is trying to say, as if somehow value of an employee is measured by the number of emails they receive, send, and reply to. When in fact, the people that get the most emails are normally some of the lowest paid people that are not terribly important. They're more admin than anything. And they don't, I think another thing that annoys me about this guy is the reason you get so many emails is because you send so many emails and copy so many people. Like the best way to get less emails a day is send less in the first place. Send less emails and don't put 8 people on the CC line, because if you got 200 emails, I bet 30 were from the same email you started and people replying back and forth. So what you're telling me as an executive, when you get 200 emails a day, is you are a tremendous waste of time to everyone else in my organization, and you're not producing shit because all you do is stare at your Outlook all day.
What I'm struck by with the first 3 of these is these all come down to self-esteem. It's like a low self-esteem, or someone who, if they're being really honest, are like, I really wonder what I do produce. So you're bragging about stuff that nobody gives a shit about, instead of focusing on the things that people do give a shit about. Like when nowadays in my life, like when someone brings up to me, like, I get 300 voicemails or I get all these emails, I'm like, I get like 7. And I sound like the world's biggest jerk, because like I've got it sourced where other people do those things. And I have a spam filter that handles a lot of things. Like it doesn't matter. You're just filling space and time with crap that nobody really wants to hear.
Like, look, at GE, at NVR, I got a lot of emails a day. I did. A lot of emails. It's hard not to get a lot of emails. That's how big corporations work. I'm making more money now than I was before on my own, and I might get 20 emails in a week that need me to respond to it. Like, there's a lot that I have to kind of look at. Maybe 20 in a week. Like, I know you get more, you have a lot more employees, but I'm like, I don't know, wealth and success, it's not measured by number of people sending you emails and number of emails you need to send people. It's measured by how much freedom you have to go do what you want, how much money you have to go spend the time you want the way you want to. It has nothing to do with how many emails you get. And it's the same guy that tells you how many unread emails they have. oh, I've got 800 emails in my inbox I haven't gotten to. And it's like, someone says that to me, it's never like the organized person in the office. It's always the unorganized disaster that isn't producing much in their day. So it's just talking about it. You sound like an idiot, and you're just proving that you're not very valuable to the organization.
What I think we do, Ian, is let's get right into the passive aggressive email guy, and we'll do a summary about bragging about or letting email be the tail that wags the dog. I think you kick off passive aggressive email guy.
Passive aggressive email guy is here's the deal. It's annoying when you do it to me, but I find it hilarious when you do it to other people and I'm somehow copied on it. So I think, can we make that distinction, Frank, that it's actually funny when someone does it to someone else? So like when Frank is passive aggressive to someone and I get BCC'd, I think it's hilarious. I think it's funny when I can see when Frank is being, Frank, share the Nichols favorite one of your response to that guy that one time of your something like, we'll never talk to you again. What is that email you sent? That was
so I think the reason that Ian and I both like that when we share these emails is because we're doing it intentionally. It's annoying when people don't do it intentionally. So what we're doing and how we're wordsmithing this and how we're replying is we're saying in a way that if you're reading it at a traffic light, or if you're not terribly bright, you might not think that we were fucking with you, but in reality we are. So my favorite saying is basically to MF someone through an entire email and sign it with very truly yours, comma.
That's how he ends it, everyone. I like many thanks after I've eviscerated you. Respectfully yours. Those are always really funny to write that after you've just crushed someone. But passive aggressive email guy says things like, let's say I ask someone a question. I'm not following something. And I say like, hey, where was this? I didn't see
Ian,
it.
Per my last email
guy can just go fuck yourself. I get a lot of emails. All I'm telling you is I didn't read your last stupid email with 4 paragraphs in it because it was too long and it was poorly worded. And I didn't catch the little half phrase in there that was telling me what I'm asking here. Or as they'll resend it, reattached for your convenience. So someone will say like, I didn't see when the settlement date was going to be. And someone had already said it. And then they'll reply all and say, I'm reattaching it for your convenience. I'm not answering your question. I've already written it once and I'm not going to take the time to do it. Go read my initial email. And they'll say things like, as I clearly stated below, per the email I already sent you, as you no doubt are aware from the correspondence I sent on Monday, like those kind of things, I just don't have any patience for if you do it to me. But when I see someone do it to someone else, I find it absolutely hilarious.
So what I'll do is
a polite way of saying you're a goddamn moron in writing.
What I love to do on that is put apologies for my delay. Read, I don't think this is very important and I haven't prioritized it.
So Frank's office manager is Carla, and I love Carla to death, and Carla listens to this show. But like a few weeks ago, I'm doing a leadership training with Frank's group. So every Friday we get on a call and we talk for an hour about one of the videos that I have them watch, and it's been great fun. But every once in a while they get behind or there's holidays, so we have to move something, or Frank's out of town. So I missed one of them that we met, and so I sent an email to the group saying, I'm in the Zoom meeting. Is everyone getting on? And then someone responded like, hey, no call today. And I was a little irritated. I'm like, is someone going to tell me? Because the Outlook that Carla had sent me was still in my calendar. So Carla hits me with the passive aggressiveness. So Carla goes in. So I'm sure Frank is like, you didn't tell Ian, get involved, gives Carla shit. So Carla sends an email to me and everyone saying, as you see below, there was no meeting today. And like, I have to scroll down 4 emails into it. And there's like this long email she had sent. And somewhere in one of the bullets was, we won't be having a call on 5/22 or something. And I'm like, Carla, come on. Like, do you think I went and changed all my Outlook from that little bullet in an email? But she crushed me with the passive aggressive. And if I didn't love Carla so much, she would have gotten an emoji of double birds going up to her from that. But I was like, I'm going to let it go. She's maybe
I waited
she's
about
having a bad day. I'm going to let it go. And I'll see you guys on Friday, Frankie. I just giggled about it. Frankie even called me after. He was like, yeah, well, hey, sorry.
I called you like 5 hours later. You're like, I'm over it. I'm over it.
I'm over it. I'm glad you didn't call me 2 minutes after she sent that email.
Teach your own leadership fundamentals, damn it.
Yes. So let's finish off on email, people, on this list, because clearly email irritates Frank and I. We don't like it. Is the guy who responds to emails late at night to create the illusion of hard work. So this is the guy that will send over like an email at 9:11 p.m. That could definitely wait until 8:30 in the morning when he's in the office, but he wants you. This is coming back to self-esteem and insecurity and self-confidence, but wants to reply all and let everyone know I'm 24/7 guy. I never stop working. I send emails. I'm always on top of it. When that was maybe impressive in 2002 when no one had a BlackBerry and you got an email at 9 o'clock, that actually meant someone was sitting in an office and still grinding. But today, everyone's got their iPhone up scrolling around on Instagram at 9:11 at night. So just because you flipped over and have a notification that an email came in and you responded all, you're not impressing anyone. You're watching Netflix and Instagram. You can wait till tomorrow to reply all.
Or you had a lot of beans at dinner and you're sitting on the throne in the one place in your house that's quiet. You're just going through email.
Which is when we get all of our long-winded text messages from Paxton about our fantasy.
It was a real shame when he went vegan.
Bathroom because we get long text message threads from him.
It's a real shame he went vegan. We lost some of that.
I think this is the same guy though, also Frank, who has to always be the first to reply all to an email. Like when someone sends an email out to 7 people saying, does anyone know when this is, or does anyone have this? It's always the same guy who has to respond first. And I personally, like a lot of times I might be the first person to read it. I'm always cognizant of not being the first to respond because I don't want to send a message that I stare at my phone all day, even though I do. I don't want to send the message that I'm addicted to my iPhone and I'm always looking at it. But I know people that are just always have to be the first to respond to everything. And to me, it leaves more of a brand that you're not producing much all day. You're just staring at your phone doing other things.
So 4 out of our first 5 things that annoy us are email. I think a takeaway here with email is this. You're being judged with email. People who are in positions of leadership and people who have opinions look at what you do and how you correspond through email. And it is an extension of who you are. And I think good basic character is sometimes lost because you are able to hide behind a keyboard and a computer screen, and you get to say something or do something that you would not have the balls to say or do to someone's face. And the problem is you're judged based upon that body of work as well. So you're doing yourself a disservice by doing these things, having some etiquette, having some self-esteem, having some couth, saying, hey, it's 9 o'clock at night. This isn't a terribly important email. Let me send it till 8:30 tomorrow morning. Little things like that can swing the pendulum in your favor where you're not looked at as being a ding dong on email. What I will say is we've all committed these crimes. Like there's no doubt we've done it. As we get older and have more perspective, we usually utilize it in a position of levity to break the tension or to kind of make a point. But I think having email muscle and saying things from behind the desk, you need to realize it's an extension of how you're being judged.
I think that's really well said. And I think most people don't give much thought to the fact that the way that they write and the way that they respond in email goes a long way in building their brand. Because to most executives, that's all they know of them is what they've seen in emails because they just don't get a lot of FaceTime or see them too often. So I think that's really powerful what you just said, Frank, and that to me, promotion, if I'm going to promote someone into a higher position in a company, one of the most important things I look for is judgment. And I think email really shows poor judgment Do you respond emotionally? Do you respond too quickly? Do you ask for knuckleheaded things that put pressure on other people? Are you selfish? I think you can see a lot of that by just watching the way people interact through email.
There's another one too. There's the overachiever, which we didn't talk about. I love the overachiever. I have an email that I got yesterday from an overachiever, and I replied with space or enter many space words and a smiley face, and I hit send. And then 5 minutes later, I replied with, there's a ton of detail here, most of which I don't completely understand and I don't know. What I would love you to do going forward is to give me a sentence. And the sentence says, this is what I found. These are the motivators. This is where it is. What do we do next? If you like to read more, I put everything else below it. I don't have time to read 4 pages of information about something that I don't know if it affects me or not. And as the leader of a company, you don't want me doing that. But if you send me a little, like if you change the title where I understand what I'm reading, or if you give me a little bit of direction, or you say, here's a little snippet of what's coming below, that's incredible. I look at that like that is an awesome email. Thank you. Thank you for informing me. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for being a guardian of my time. And now let me make sure I prioritize this and get you what you need to help connect the dots. The really long ones that don't have, like, I just don't know what to do, they sit in my inbox for days because it's just time consuming.
Classic Mark Twain quote. I'm sorry to send you a longer letter. If I had more time, I'd have written a short one. And that's the truth, is if you want to get your point across, for me, writing is easy if I have all the words I need. And I had a good executive early in my career at GE who used to just crush me on this all the time. He would say, I'm sure there's some very good thoughts in this. I didn't read it. Send it back to me, something I can read in less than 60 seconds, and you've got a chance. And he would write that to me, and I'd get pissed because I'd be like, I spent an hour writing that. And he'd be like, that's the point. Like, I don't have an hour to read your email. You're not that important, dude. Like, I got a lot going on. Give me something I can read in a minute. Use your brain, make the point in less words. And he used to pound me on it, like over and over and over again until I got the point, like, okay. And then when at MVR, our CEO, Paul Seville, you got 5 words from him. It was like a book. He didn't reply to emails. He didn't send them. It was like a few words. Come see me on this. Like, let's talk. Or looks like we should fix this. That's about all you ever got from Seville. He might send 3 or 4 emails a day, and he's running one of the most successful publicly traded companies. It was, let's talk about this. Or he would read it and go drop it on someone's desk that they should go fix something. That was it.
Do you know the one rule John F. Kennedy had with memos? He had one rule. No staple.
Oh, I love that.
You can use a paper clip. 1 page. That's it. If you are giving me something, it needs to be under a page. Make it. There's a line from a movie that I think explain it to me so a 7-year-old could understand it.
Mm-hmm.
What we lose is we have this vastness in front of us with this computer, and we think diarrhea is going to be rewarded. It isn't. Tight, concise, helpful, move the ball forward. That's what's helpful. And we've lost these disciplines because, I don't know, just fatigue is causing us to do more of it.
So let's move away from the office for a minute.
As much fun as that was.
Let's move to a different venue. I want to talk about the guy who acts like he's never been on an airplane before. And the reason why this is a business person who annoys us is they always seem to have a Brooks Brothers shirt on and they look like they're on a business trip. And I'm talking about assholes who can't follow basic protocol on an airplane. It lands, you wait, a beep comes in, a lady says you can now get your bags. And this is the person who is first to jump up, grab his bag and start pushing as far as they can up. So they will pass in front of like 10 rows if those rows weren't quick enough to get their bag, instead of doing what basic social contract would say, which is wait for the first rows to get their bag politely, get off the, and this is the same guy who's like shoving ahead of pregnant moms, like, or kid, mom and dad with 2 kids. This is the same guy who's shoving ahead of an elderly couple because his time is clearly more important because he's on a business trip, that he can't just wait another 6 minutes for everyone to get off in front of him politely.
What I love about this guy is you see him like running ahead, like they have some massive meeting or they're late for another flight. And then you calmly get your bag and you're polite to people and you walk down the jetway and you get into the airport and he's sitting there with like an Auntie M's pretzel smashing it.
Yeah.
So like he's like rushing through everything just so you can go like get a concession.
Yeah, he sat in like a 2-hour ops meeting that a real boss asked him to come to, and he's rushing ahead of everyone because he is a overachiever and he's a doer and he needs to move and he has no patience. And it's like you see this guy and you're like, if you're so important, why are you sitting in the middle seat and coach? You're
right.
not important.
Why are you in row 37E right in front of the toilet in the middle seat? Like, you're not that important.
Yes. And why are you trying to rush ahead of me in my first class seat, a-hole? You're that important.
You know who nobody knows rushes off the plane? The guy in 2B, which is where I sit.
He's going to get there. He'll get there when he gets there. He's on his time. Probably headed to a meeting where they're waiting on him. So that's okay. If he doesn't get off too fast, that's all right.
Yesterday we did a charitable event. We were doing this community service thing and I cursed in like a spot, and the woman, it's a faith-based organization, and she kind of looked at me and kind of turned a little bit white. I said, don't worry, we'll beep out the curse word. And she felt a little better. I feel like today is our way of like getting all the curses out, but screw it.
It's also, Frank, this is also the same guy who has his earphones in, he's looking at his phone while he's getting on the plane.
Right.
Just sits and watches a lady
Netflix.
with a 2-year-old in her arm trying to put her bag up by herself. Doesn't help at all. I notice these guys all the time. Like, they're so into themselves and feel so self-important to be on the plane that they're irritated that there's even a family with kids on it. They don't help the older lady put her bag up. Like, I want to choke this guy. I literally get myself worked up where I want to choke someone on an airplane. There's one of these a-holes on every flight I've ever been on.
The profanity-laced comment is this: if you're so fucking important, why aren't you flying private with Biggie, asshole?
Yes, yes.
Why are you on Spirit Airlines seat 37E?
Yes, and that would be weird if you were flying with Biggie because you would have an urn in your hand.
Correct, and he's dead. But the point is, someone who's in a current lawn since dead, someone who's in a rap video. Like, why aren't you flying private?
Yes. So number 7, man, I know a bunch of these over time, but number 7 is the human echo. And so this is the person who feels like every agenda item that the boss put on the conference call, the Zoom call, the meeting, needs his input. Human echo guy. So no matter how clear cut and dried the topic might be and how resolved it might have been with other people, he feels the need to add his 2 cents. And there's always one of these guys that makes every meeting go another 20 minutes longer than they need to. I just can't stand this person. They drive me crazy, and it's so transparent. And the reason why it's transparent is they almost never add something new to the agenda item. Normally, I knew a guy at MBR that did this in every quarterly meeting. He would, no matter what I said, he would say, I really like what Ian just said. And this wasn't my boss, it was like a peer. I really like what Ian just said. I think restating it a different way, and then he would say the same thing I just said. He had no value to it. There was nothing original, there was nothing new. There was no need to say it. You could have said, I agree, but you just wasted 7 minutes repeating what I said with a few different words to make it appear as if we came up with the idea yourself. I can't stand you.
So I think this comes back to self-esteem. You have nothing good to say. You're afraid that people are going to see that you have nothing important to add. And what you're going to do is take something that someone else said and you're going to restate it. And what I find hysterical is two things. Number one, the person who does that. Like it's pretty pathetic. And it's one of those things where it's like, give me a break. Just agree, come up with something original, say, I have really nothing to add. That was a great point. I agree completely. I'm behind it. Like that, everybody respects that. We can get to lunch faster. But if you do work in an organization or with a group of people where the restater then provides like that becomes the commentary that everyone dives into, like it's lazy management. I've seen it before. It's pathetic. It's like, it was said, we talked about it, we've decided it, someone then repeats it and we do it again. Like that's not an effective use of time, nor is it an effective way to schedule a meeting. And if you are allowing that to happen in your meeting, you need to look at, what is your leadership? Do we really need to allow that? Is this the time to have the conversation again with something new brought up? If it wasn't, you're losing the room. And nowadays, everyone's got distractions. Everyone's on their phones. They're looking with their heads down. They're doing other things. They're checking emails. You're losing the room. That's not how you want to do it.
I think, Frank, one way I've always thought about this is if there was a meeting with a bunch of different animals in the jungle and they had a meeting, I feel like the person we're talking about would be like the hyenas. Like the hyenas really have no respect. They're kind of bottom feeders. They come eat off of carcasses that other things have killed. They never shut up. They're always running their mouth. They're irritated. I kind of look at it like if there was a meeting with a bunch of animals, like the elephants and the lions would kind of just stay quiet until they really had something to say, because the elephant and the lion has no natural predator in the room. There are no threats in the room to them, right? So there's no need for them to weigh in all the time unless someone asks their opinion. I always kind of think of it that way. Like, what are the animals in the room that would be chirping and would never shut up? They would be irritating. A lion and an elephant would just sit and chill and listen until they really needed to say something. And there were certain people on every team I've ever been on that hardly ever talked, but when they did, everyone kind of leaned in, because you just knew that it's like Charlie Munger, right? I have nothing to add, which he does on 2/3 of the questions at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting. Charlie says, I have nothing to add, because Warren's a long talker. And if Warren said everything in Charlie's mind, then Charlie just says, okay, you covered that well. But if he didn't cover it well, or Charlie disagrees, he talks. And I think you notice this too, Frank. When Charlie talks in that meeting, everyone leans forward a little, because Warren's always talking. He talks a lot. But Charlie doesn't talk a lot. So when he does talk, you lean in, because you know he doesn't talk for the sake of doing it.
Ian, I think that was a really good point. Stated another way. So my original thought on top of what you just said is this: if you want to stake yourself to middle management or the bottom of the rung, mimic these things. These are what people who get passed over do. Charlie Munger didn't get passed over. Warren Buffett's clearly brilliant, but he's up there on stage with one other person. And he brought that guy up on stage because that guy knows his spot. He knows his place. He knows when to speak. He knows when not to add anything because it was good enough. And he's one of the richest people on the planet. And that's how we measure success in our society. What I can tell you is, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, how do I utilize these skills to my advantage? People realize what's happening. Most people are fairly self-aware. Your manager is probably self-aware, or they'll be replaced. If they weren't self-aware, they wouldn't have gotten that job. And if they're not continuing to evolve and be self-aware of what's happening around them, they're going to get passed over. But if you are adding good points, you're saying things that matter, you're not the human echo, you're not sending bullshit emails out. And if you're called upon, you deliver a great point, people are going to say, wow, that person's young, but they got their stuff together. It starts to add up, and it builds inertia in your favor in your career. However, if you're one of these people who's a human echo, I saw these people as a young manager. I passed them. I breezed right by them. They had nothing original to say. They were always just tacking on the things that was already beat to death. Like, there's no value in that.
Number 8, people who respond to a voicemail with a text or an email. Now, I want to start with the caveat of I do this myself. But that being said, Frank, how often do you call and leave voicemails anymore?
It's very rare. Like there's a handful of people I leave them for always, but like most people who work with me, I don't even text them. If I call them and they don't answer, they call me back as soon as they're off the phone. So it's very rare.
But in general, you don't call people when a text would do. You don't
Correct.
call people when an email would do.
Right.
I'm calling you, it's because I need to hash something out. I need more than a one-word answer. I need more than something simple. So if I'm calling you, I don't call people just to call them. And I don't call people just to annoy them. You know, so when you call someone and you get the text of like, hey, what's up? It's like, look, if I wanted a text saying what's up, I'd have just texted you in the first place. Either pick the phone up or call me back, one of two. Don't do that to me if I'm calling you and I'm not someone that calls you every day to bother you, which I don't do that to anyone.
So here's what I think is relevant here. Certain people call me and I only reply to them via text because they're time wasters. Like it's an hour and a half conversation. I don't have time for it. It's just
long-winded. That's right.
Right. Like, hey, I'm in a meeting. What can I do to help you? And it can usually be accomplished with it. Oh, sorry to bug you. I just needed this. Boom. Thanks. Done. Other people, we have real dialogue and banter that we need to talk about. And then there's other people, you know, a handful. Like if my wife calls me in the middle of the day, I answer. She knows I'm busy. She knows I'm dealing with something. She knows I know how to read a text message. If she calls me, I say, hey, this is Ellie. Give me a second. Let me answer this. I'm like, hey, I'm in a meeting. What's up? And she's like, Max fell at school. One of us has got to get him. Okay. Like that requires immediate attention. And you start to understand those things. So this comes back to email etiquette. If you're one of these people who constantly calls people, they don't answer and they text you back, you're wasting their time. Be honest, understand that. Like people who are successful value their time. And there was a period in my life where I really felt like an ass because I started to become very selfish and protective of my time. I also started to make a lot more money. I was a lot more successful. I was protective of it. And I don't know, there's a double-edged sword there, but I think you got to be very mindful of this.
I like that summary. That's good. Number 9 is, here's how we did it at my last company, guy. Or that's not how we did it at my last company, guy. Man, there are just a small handful of things that you could say to me that irritate me more than that. Especially early when you get people that come in right away that are talking about the way their old boss handled things or their old company handled things, because there's undertones of that, of I don't like the way things are done here. And it always just makes me, and I'm a pretty open-minded guy to new ideas, unless you lead with that. That's to me, that's like saying no offense. I'm just putting my fists up on what you're going to say next. My immediate thought always is, if you did it so well at your last company, why are you here? Why didn't you stay there if they're so great? You know, why were you looking for a job? Don't pick and choose the things you liked at the old place when you're not looking at the things that we do much better.
There's a tactful and strategic way to talk about this. What I've seen done in the past is this, and this is why it worked or it didn't. That's an awesome piece of feedback. It's lazy to say at my last job this, or at my last company this, or this is how we used to do things, or this is how I always used to do things. Okay, great. Well, that got you here. When I hear this, I typically walk into the manager's office, the person's manager's office, and I'm like, be careful. I'm starting to see warning signs. Like, to me, it's a major warning sign that that person can't adapt, can't change, can't take the things that we saw in the interview and incorporate it into our world and be successful. And
the job fit, it's a red flag for job fit. Like, this wasn't a good job fit or culture fit, and it doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make your company bad. You just might be different. They might be coming from a big company and now they're in a small company, and they just want you to run like a big company. That's never going to happen. It could be the opposite of that. It could be just a different industry, but it's a red flag that this just wasn't a fit from the start, no matter, and some of that you can fix in the interview process. Some of that you just have to see once they get there.
This is a story I haven't told you. This happened probably within the last 90 to 120 days. We had a guy who used to work for one of our vendors, and he was good friends with Eddie. And I met him a couple of times, and he left his old job and he was putting his resume out there. And we're like, all right, we're going to hire this guy. We interviewed him. And every time we talked to him, like something else cropped up, like there was an issue or a problem or this or that. And he was going to get into sales. And at one point I pulled Eddie and Angelo aside and I said, if he can't get the offer letter signed with us, he can't sell here. Like, this is the easiest sale there is, like just simply signing. Like, we've lined this up for this person. And in the old days, I would have thought, like, you know what, this is my fault, we're making it too complicated. We got a business. This is how the business runs. This is how we function. It works for a lot of people. If we can't get over this initial hurdle, we got to just say, you know what, let's cut it now.
I love that. I mean, it's almost a little employment test right out of the gate. If you can't follow a simple instruction, you're not going to follow any of our simple instructions after this. Frank, this was a great podcast. Is someone going to be sending minutes out?
You know, I was thinking you got less to do than me.
I'm going to be sending meetings out, meeting minutes. This is number 10 on our list. I don't like this guy. I don't like him. If you're the boss and you ask someone in there to take notes for you, that's one thing. Okay, you got someone taking some notes because maybe you're up in front and you're presenting and you're taking a more active role, so it's harder for you to take notes. But when you're like a mid-level person in the middle of the meeting who's asking if minutes will be sent out, that is just such a one, it's a bit of a kiss ass move. You want the boss to know that you would love to reread the minutes from the meeting because they're really impactful to your life. But two, there's almost an air of pretentiousness in that of, I'm not going to be taking good enough notes, so will someone lower than me in this meeting do it for me? I don't know why this one bothers me so much, but whenever someone in a meeting says, will minutes be sent out from this, it annoys me.
So it annoys me if it comes from someone other than the boss. But I think when I walk into a meeting, and a lot of these happen over Zoom nowadays, and I say, hey, thank you all for coming. Just an FYI, Carla's going to be taking notes. She's going to distribute those at the end of the meeting. It'll have the Zoom link on it. Like, to me, that's preparedness and saying, we're getting on this. And Carla understands that that's one of the things I want her to do, and she's on board to do it. We've had this conversation, and she can type way better than I can. And the notes are great. Everything's organized. It's great. But like, if you're just an underling and you come in saying that, it annoys me for this reason. You're entitled and you don't think you need to take notes. There's so many studies out there that say if you are going to learn and retain something, active note taking is the most important thing you can do. It's the number one thing you can do. I have a side hustle where I do consulting. My notes are 400 pages in a Word doc. Now, it's been like a decade, but I literally have everything there. Everything's keyworded. Whenever we go to a meeting, I take my own notes. And then someone has a question sometimes later on, I pull up my notes. I've got everything in there. I can go to the meeting, the date, and look at it. And we're in meetings sometimes. I'm like, what do we decide about this? And they can't find it. I pull my notes up and it's right there. So if you're inside of a structure or someone's providing you the notes, that's awesome. But your opinion matters too. So either add to those notes and keep them yourself, or jot them down your way, or take the initiative to find yourself taking your own so you can control that and it backstops you. Like, none of us can remember everything, but a good note-taking system, and I think the reason it annoys you, maybe it's this: you are constantly taking notes. Whenever I see you, you're scribbling stuff down because you know you have to do that. So someone else that's saying, hey, will you do this for me? Fundamentally, it's broken.
It annoys me. And I don't take pages of notes. I might write down 6-7 bullets that I'm going to take action on. I think some people just write the whole time because they want the manager to think that it's like, that's kind of a leftover behavior from college, is you want the professor to see that you're taking earnest notes the whole time, or they might call on you. So I think some people, that sticks with them. I write down shit that I'm going to go do after the meeting. And that's all I write.
I write down two things. I write down anything that helps me remember the meeting that might be useful. So if I want to come, like if there's something happening up here that's big picture, I might take down some bullets. So in 6 months, if I want to recall this meeting, I can go back to it. And then what I might do at the bottom is put a to-do or an arrow or a highlight and say, this is the actionable item. But my brain works different than your brain. But for me, it's a system of recall that lets me continue to build. And I think thematically with this, it's people who are just obtuse, lazy, and don't respect other people's time is what annoys us. Because by and large, with the exception of this podcast, we don't waste a lot of time. We are very action forward guys who have gotten pretty far in both private and in the public sector. And that's why it's because we know how to capitalize on these things and mitigate the problems.
I'm going to throw in one bonus one before we finish, and that is the will there be a vegetarian option, or is there peanuts in any of the food that's going to be there for lunch? You know what? Screw you. If you have a peanut allergy, bring your own goddamn sandwich with you. Too bad. I don't care that Chick-fil-A fries their waffle fries in peanut oil. That's your friggin' problem. If you choose not to eat carnivorous the way I do, go to hell. I'm paying for the meal. It's going to be fried chicken. It's going to be Chick-fil-A, and there's going to be waffle fries, and that's it. I'm not getting a big bowl of lettuce. Whenever like an admin would come ask me and say, someone asked if there'd be vegetarian, and I know you wanted Chick-fil-A tenders, I would be like, tough shit. They should bring their own food. I have zero patience for any of that garbage. So that's me personally, but I don't give a shit if your kid has a peanut allergy. You should know that. I'm not preparing for just one kid out of 20.
It's one of the main reasons, like it's one of the things of reason why I married my wife. She's mostly a vegetarian, but she's not one of those people who, when the waiter shows up, says, I'm a vegetarian, and everyone has to feel bad that they're eating meat. She does it really quietly. And if she goes somewhere where there's mostly meat options, she figures out how to navigate around it. She doesn't make it your problem.
She always finds something to eat, never says a word to anyone that I'm a vegetarian. In fact, a lot of people will worry more about her than she ever says it. And she'll say, don't worry about me. I always find something. That's what Ella always says. I always find something. It's never like, will there be vegetarian options? Like you're putting that on the host that they have to now worry about cooking just for you when the other 30 people at this party are not. Tough shit. Like, you chose that lifestyle, so bring something with you. Bring a bag of carrots.
How do you want to summarize this thing before you wrap it?
I mean, people that ask me how to summarize a meeting at the end are too lazy to do it themselves, and they irritate the shit out of me, if I'm being honest. Frank.
That was a really good point, Ian. You know what I think about that?
Restate it different. Why don't you summarize this yourself, you lazy bastard? I do everything else for this stupid podcast.
Hey, when am I going to get the notes?
Hey, this was great. I think we should do a lot more of these because this felt very cathartic. I feel like I was on a couch with my psychiatrist, and I was really getting out some deep-seated shit right out today. I feel
the only thing that would make this better is if we were on an airplane and I was in row 3 and you were in row 37.
Would be even better, yes. And if we had bourbon to do this, I think the next one we do, we should be drinking straight bourbon, and we can really get into how we feel.
Oh, let's have like 4 bottles of Brunello and record.
Really good. See you, Frankie. I hope you don't irritate me again the rest of the day.
See you, Ian.
See ya.